to the Watchman. Well, the Obama administration had some very nasty words for a foreign leader recently who it has accused of damaging world peace and stirring up extremism. Was it Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei? No. Kim Jong-un of North Korea? Nope. Russia's Vladimir Putin? Nada. What about the self-proclaimed caliph of the Islamic State, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi? No, not him either. The target of the president's, quote, red-hot anger is not a dictator or a terror kingpin, but the democratically elected leader of America's most loyal ally in the Middle East, if not the world, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. According to a recent piece in The Atlantic by Obama apologist Jeffrey Goldberg, a senior White House official told him, "The thing about Bibi is he's a chicken bleep. He's got no guts." Now, this unnamed Obama official, unnamed, how brave, was talking about the same Benjamin Netanyahu who served courageously in an Israeli Special Forces unit as a young man and was wounded in action. But folks, this is how the Obama administration treats its allies. Bibi has defied them on so-called settlements and has chose to continue to build homes for Jews in the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem. He's also called the president out for his shameful appeasement of Iran and its nuclear weapons program. For that, Goldberg says, the White House's anger at Bibi is, quote, red hot. Mind you, they can't seem to muster that same kind of red hot anger against Vladimir Putin or ISIS, but those pesky Jews really make them mad. Goldberg went on to gleefully report how another senior Obama administration official bragged that the White House believes Israel will not strike Iran's nuclear weapons program. The official told Goldberg it's too late for Bibi to do anything. 2-3 years ago, this was a possibility, but ultimately he couldn't bring himself to pull the trigger. It was a combination of our pressure and his own unwillingness to do anything dramatic. Now it's too late. Folks, two observations about that quote from a senior Obama official. Number one, he seems mighty proud that the Obama White House has tied Israel's hands behind their back and held them back from striking the existential threat that Iran's nuclear weapons program poses. Number two, if I was an Obama official, I wouldn't get too giddy about the possibility of a nuclear-armed Iran because, folks, at the end of the day, in the Iranian ideology that we've discussed so much here on the show, Israel is only the little Satan. It's America that is the great Satan, the ultimate target and the ultimate prize of this Iranian regime. And guess what? Iran is not only developing nuclear weapons, it is developing intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, that our own Pentagon says may soon be able to reach the east coast of the United States, where I am standing right now. Folks, that information came in a Pentagon report saying that by 2015, just a few months away, Iran may have that capability. Now, folks, you only develop intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, for one reason and one reason only: to mount them with a nuclear warhead. Now, Iran already has short-range missiles and medium-range missiles that can reach all of Israel and can reach most of Europe. Why would they want intercontinental missiles that can reach the United States? Folks, you do the math. And in these ongoing nuclear negotiations with the Iranian regime, we're seeing Iran say, no, we will not give up our missile program under any circumstances. Now, that's stunning. There's a reason they won't give that missile program up, and there is a reason they're developing those missiles in the first place, and a reason they call America the Great Satan. Folks, if Iran got its way, and it was able to wipe Israel off the map, and we've read the book, so we know that's not going to happen. But if Iran did get its way and push the Zionist entity into the sea, does anyone watching this show right now really believe that the Iranians would pack up their bags and go home? Mission accomplished. Israel's gone, so we're done? No. Israel is the first line of defense for Western civilization. It is the canary in the coal mine. And ladies and gentlemen, if Israel goes down, we all go down. Make no mistake about it. This is the kind of regime, if they got a nuclear weapons capability, they would use it. Well, more on the Iranian threat later in the show, but shifting gears a bit right now, ISIS has engaged in a reign of terror across the Middle East, raping, pillaging, and beheading its way to a new caliphate. Now, a growing number of U.S. citizens are leaving America to join the brutal ISIS army. These recruits are being radicalized here on U.S. soil, and they may eventually return home. Take a look. It's hard to imagine America's heartland as a breeding ground for terrorism. Yet when news emerged that 2 U.S. citizens had been killed in Syria fighting alongside ISIS, the path led back to, of all places, Minnesota. The 2 men were part of a growing number of young Muslims from Minneapolis and St. Paul who have answered the call of jihad. At least a dozen young Muslims from here in the Twin Cities have left their homes to travel to the Middle East and join ISIS. Some of them worshipped at this mosque in a quiet suburb of Minneapolis. An Egyptian-American man allegedly recruited young Somali Muslims from the Al-Farouk Mosque and helped send them to Syria. Mosque officials say they banned Amir Mashal earlier this year when they learned he was preaching jihad. The suspected terror recruiter remains at large.
Usually there's one principal person that is what I call the guide of the person that can take this person in this ideological state and guide them to Syria or wherever it might be.
Bob Fletcher is the former sheriff for Ramsey County, which includes the city of St. Paul. He now works with Somali leaders to battle radicalism in their Twin Cities community, which has seen dozens of young men travel overseas to join terrorist groups in recent years.
They need to procure travel documents. They need to raise money, usually somewhere in the area of $4,000 to $5,000 to help facilitate all the travel that takes place. And plus, they want to have money when they get there. And they need to make sure that someone is purchasing the tickets. That requires a credit card of some source to get to, and they need a driver and a facilitator to get them to the airport.
The recent deadly attacks against Canadian soldiers and the Canadian Parliament by ISIS sympathizers were another reminder of the chaos that just a handful of terrorists can cause on Western soil. It's estimated that as many as 3,000 Western passport holders from places like Canada, Britain, France, and the United States are fighting for the Islamic State. FBI Director James Comey and Attorney General Eric Holder both said recently that 12 Americans are fighting with ISIS in Iraq and Syria. Other Obama administration officials have said that at least 100 U.S. citizens overall have traveled to Syria to join terrorist groups. According to Democrat Congressman Tim Bishop, up to 40 of those American jihadists have already come home.
Those 40 are under FBI attention and surveillance, so they are known and they are being tracked by the FBI.
One suspected American the FBI is tracking starred in this recent ISIS propaganda video called Flames of War, where he executed Syrian troops.
We're here in the 17th Division military base just outside the city of Al-Raqqa, and we're here with the soldiers of Bashar. You can see them now digging their own graves in the very place where they were stationed.
A major concern is that ISIS recruits will return to the United States and carry out attacks here. Fletcher says ISIS sympathizers on U.S. soil who have never traveled overseas but were self-radicalized at home may be the more immediate threat.
I think it's a far greater concern that people that are here and radicalized that haven't gone back might strike out against America.
Up next, what does the Bible say about Iran's nuclear weapons program and what is coming next in the Middle East? We talk to a top prophecy expert about it after the break. Don't move. And welcome back. Well, as ISIS continues to expand its territory in the heart of the Middle East, Iran, remember them, continues to drive for a nuclear weapon. The centrifuges continue to spin, the uranium continues to be enriched, and the Obama administration doesn't seem willing to take the steps to stop that Iranian nuclear weapons program. So what does it all mean from a prophetic sense? If you watch this show, you know I am a prophecy buff. That's why it's great to have our good friend Bill Salus back on the show this week. Bill is the author of a great new book called Nuclear Showdown in Iran, revealing the ancient prophecy of Elam. We've had Bill on the show many times. He always brings great prophetic insights. Bill, it's great to have you back on the show.
Eric, it's great to be back, and what a hot topic with Iran.
Wow. You know, it's funny, Bill, because Iran, very clever as always. They invented chess in Persia. They are kind of in the shadows a bit right now. Just that's where they like to be. And the Iranian and the nuclear weapons program continues to march while the world's attention is riveted on Ebola and ISIS. Bill, what are the state of things with this Iranian nuclear weapons program? How close do you believe they are right now?
Well, they could be very, very close. You know, they have 19,000 centrifuges. Not all of them are spinning presently, but the estimates are 19,000 centrifuges spinning 24/7 could produce a nuclear weapon in 6 weeks. Now, of course, Ayatollah Khamenei is pushing for 190,000 separate work units, which would be centrifuges. That would there's a possibility in time where Iran could have produce about 38 nuclear weapons per year. One Israeli official had come out and said that Iran could have 50 to 100 nuclear weapons by the year 2024.
Wow. And you know, Bill, they also are the Iranians working on this long-range intercontinental ballistic missile program, which means those nukes could one day reach the United States. Okay, so we know Iran wants to wipe Israel off the map. We know Iran considers America the great Satan and really their greatest enemy. Bill, what does all of this mean prophetically?
Well, you know, the Bible does speak quite a bit about Elam's future, and so we don't have to take guesses, Eric. We've got Iran involved in 2 end times prophecies. One of them most people are very familiar with that study Bible prophecy, and that's in Ezekiel 38 and 39. That's called that Gog of Magog invasion, where Russia comes together with Turkey and Persia, which we call Iran now, and other populations to come against Israel in the latter days. That's a very formidable advance. But one prophecy that's been vastly overlooked, that was written about 2,700 years ago by Ezekiel's contemporary Jeremiah, is the subject of my new book. And I believe it could be dealing with Iran's nuclear program. It is dealing with a disaster that comes out of the Persian Gulf area by the Bushehr province area where that Bushehr nuclear reactor is in ancient Elam. Ancient Elam is the subject of the book, Eric.
Now, was Elam inside modern-day Iran, Bill?
Yes, when you look at a map of modern-day Iran, you will see that Elam hugs the Persian Gulf. Elam was the son of Shem. He was the grandson of Noah. He was, we're told in Genesis 14, they were a warlike people. We're told in Isaiah 22, verse 6, in that area that they were expert archers. So what we have here is a advanced, much deeper history than Persia. They're hugging the Persian Gulf where that Bushehr nuclear reactor is. So they take about 1/5 of modern-day Iran, and Persia would comprise about 4/5 of the rest of Iran.
Wow, very interesting. And Bill, you know, this prophecy of Elam, a lot of people don't know about it. As you said, they know about the Ezekiel prophecy, but tell us a little bit more what the Bible says about Elam.
Yes, Elam in Jeremiah 49, verses 34 through 39. In a nutshell, Eric, what happens is that the Lord gets fiercely angered, and because he gets fiercely angered, a disaster, a judgment, a disastrous judgment comes about in that specific area. And what happens is it says that the bow of Elam will be broken, which takes on a special meaning when we understand that Elam were expert archers, the Elamites. So he's going to break the bow. Now, if that happens in our time, it could be very well dealing with those ICBMs you were talking about. Maybe something's going to affect their ability to launch out their missiles, which, by the way, they say they can hit any target in Israel presently.
So we got to run to the commercial now, Bill. I don't mean to cut you off, my friend, but we're going to get into this much more after the break. What is Iran going to do, Elam, to bring this judgment upon them? Much more coming up with Bill Salus after the break. Stick around. And welcome back. We're talking to Bill Salus, author of Nuclear Showdown in Iran, revealing the ancient prophecy of Elam. Bill, before the break, you were telling us a little bit more about what the Bible says about this judgment that may very well come upon Iran How is this going to come about? What will Iran do to kind of bring this upon themselves?
Yes, Iran fiercely angers the Lord, we're told in Jeremiah 49. And in this judgment, the bow of Elam is broken. They're struck at the foremost of their might, Eric, which today would possibly and probably be their nuclear program. It then goes on to say that as a result of the breaking of the bow and striking at the foremost of the might, you appear to have a humanitarian crisis where it says the affected indigenous population, the Iranians by the Persian Gulf and ancient Elam, they will be spread out in a worldwide dispersion. It says there will be no nation where the outcasts of Elam do not go. It goes on to say that Elam, or Iran in this case, will be dismayed before their enemies. It speaks about Iran having enemies, plural, not just the Lord being upset. And we know Iran does have enemies. Israel's concerned. The Sunnis are concerned over there.
Even ISIS, yeah.
ISIS is concerned. The international community is concerned about the Strait of Hormuz being shut down, or terrorism, cycles of violence and terrorism. That's why they're negotiating with Iran on their nuclear program. So you have this disaster. It appears to be military. It talks about the Lord will send the sword after them. That tends to be biblically a military campaign. A disaster that could lead to a humanitarian crisis, a worldwide dispersion, not like what we see in Syria. You know, you've got about 3 million Syrian refugees spread out in the connecting areas of Turkey and Lebanon and Jordan and Iraq, even in Egypt. They had to flee because of the revolution. Now, we're talking about something that drives Iranians from the affected population, which, by the way, is where that dangerous Bushehr nuclear reactor is in ancient Elam, into the nations of the world. I'm concerned we're dealing with a potential strike on Iran's nuclear program that leads to a disaster in this judgment and a worldwide dispersion.
Bill, that's what I was going to ask you. Does Israel play into this prophecy at all? This prophecy of Elam?
We have enemies. We're listed that Iran has enemies, and in modern time, of course, we know Israel's right at the top of the list. They are definitely concerned about Iran's nuclear program. The threat of them striking Iran's nuclear program is very real, very legitimate. So they very well could be. It doesn't specifically say who the enemies are, but I would have to say, with the fact that America's on the sidelines now, they're more concerned about containment, as is most of the international community, that it's going to be, Israel's going to have to take matters into their own hand.
What happens after this, Bill? Does the Bible say anything about what comes next after this potential humanitarian crisis in Iran? What comes after that? Is there a revival in Iran, perhaps?
Fantastic question. You know, this is the interesting thing. There's 6 verses. I was just quoting from the first 4 in Jeremiah 49, verses 34 through 37. But verses 38 and 39 actually lay out good news for Iran, Eric, and this might be shocking for your audience. It says in verse 38 that the Lord is going to set his throne in Elam. And it's the Hebrew word kiseh, which is the same word used for in Jeremiah 3, verse 17, when the Lord sets up his throne in Jerusalem in the Messianic kingdom. It's the same word used in Isaiah 66. It talks about the Lord's throne is currently in heaven. So what is that all about? Well, that is good news that the Lord will be someday setting his throne up in Elam, and we find out in the final verse, it's in the latter years. It says he'll set his throne in Elam, and then it goes on to say, in the latter years, he will bring back the captivity. He will restore the fortunes of these dispersed Iranians. So the good news is that Iranians in the Messianic kingdom, like Israelis, like Jordanians, Assyrians, Egyptians, and other populations, will come to recognize that Jesus is the Lord after this travail, after their various travails, and they will be escorted into the Messianic kingdom. That is the amazing story. And you know what? That seems to be, we're getting a precursor to that right now, Eric, because Iran is experiencing the #1 evangelical population growth annually in the world at a rate of 19.6%, far exceeding everybody else, according to Operation World, which is a handbook most missionary-minded churches have in their libraries.
I want to talk to you more about that as we wrap up, Bill. Real quick, we have about 20 seconds left. Are you getting any, this is a revolutionary, I believe, view of prophecy. You getting any pushback?
Well, it's just come out, and whenever we introduce the discernment of a new prophecy, much like the Psalm 83 prophecy that I introduced, it takes a little while for the scholars to digest it, but so far, people are really interested in what I'm saying. It does appear to be a prophecy for our time. I prove in the book it has not been historically fulfilled.
Yeah. Well, Bill, you can find all Bill's work on prophecydepot.com. Check it out. Some final thoughts with Bill Salus after the break. Don't move. And welcome back. We're wrapping up with our good friend Bill Salus, author of Nuclear Showdown in Iran, revealing the ancient prophecy of Elam. Bill, so much going on in the world. Give us your take. What do you think is next on the prophetic timetable in the short amount of time we have?
Well, Eric, there are so many things to talk about with Psalm 83, the concluding Arab-Israeli war. That appears to be imminent. This Elam prophecy, what appears to be perhaps even a nuclear-related prophecy, that appears to be imminent. That may even lead to the wider Psalm 83 conflict. And, of course, in the backdrop of that, you've got the destruction of Damascus in Isaiah 17.
Yes.
What I would tell your audience, Eric, is that we are living in unprecedented times. Israel has been a nation for 66 years. The enemies around Israel are imploding. There's a lot of infighting. And at the same token, there's this common denominator of an animosity toward Israel, a hatred toward Israel, which is at the key of these end times prophecies. And the encouragement here is that when we read about this prophecy in Elam, you hear about this Iranian revival going on. You hear about these refugee camps, Syrian refugee camps, where people are coming to the Lord in multitudes at the risk of high persecution. I always teach on this at these churches and conferences that American Christians need to recognize the Lord is extremely busy. People are coming to the Lord in these Islamic repressed areas through dreams, visions, and healings. The Lord is taking personal responsibility to reconcile as many people as he can as time is shortening to his heart. This is his goal. He loves everyone, which is that none would perish. Even the Muslims are converting to Christianity. I know many Americans believe that the Lord sits in heaven humming the Star-Spangled Banner and wrapped in the American flag. But, we need to recognize that the Lord is very busy in other parts of the world. We need to pray for these people. We need to contribute finances to these ministries that are reaching out to these places. And they are our brothers and sisters as well, Eric. Amazing time to be alive.
It is, Bill. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us. The book is Nuclear Showdown in Iran. What encouragement from you, Bill. Thank you so much. Check it out. All of Bill's work at prophecydepot.com. Again, Nuclear Showdown in Iran. Thanks to our good friend Bill Salus, and thank you for joining us again this week on The Watchman. Until next week, God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace.